South Africa's government has decided to expel Israel's charge d'affaires from Pretoria, giving him 72 hours to leave the country, in what they claim is a failure and a violation of diplomatic protocol. Well, the statement by the South African Director of International Relations and Cooperation is boilerplate in some respects, but also includes something that is questionable at best. Now, South Africa, make no mistake, is a sovereign country, and their decision to accept the credentials of any diplomat is up to them. That's how the Vienna Convention works. However, rejecting or making a person persona non grata on spurious grounds is a slippery slope, a very slippery slope. Now, there is some merit to what happened here, but it's quite extreme. And no doubt it plays a very close role with the arrival of U.S. Ambassador Brent Bozell, who pro-terror groups in South Africa are now asking or demanding that the government of South Africa reject his credentials. So what better way to start by expelling the top Israeli diplomat in South Africa? And this is what Durko had to say just a short while ago. The Department of International Relations Cooperation has informed the government of the State of Israel of its decision to declare Mr. Ariel Seidman, the charge d'affaires of the Israeli embassy, persona non grata. This decisive measure follows a series of unacceptable violations of diplomatic norms and practice which pose a direct challenge to South Africa's sovereignty. These violations include the repeated use of official Israeli social media platforms to launch insulting attacks against His Excellency, President Cyril Ramaphosa, and a deliberate failure to inform Durko of purported visits by senior Israeli officials. Such actions represent a gross abuse of diplomatic privilege and a fundamental breach of the Vienna Convention. They have systemically undermined the trust and protocols essential for our bilateral relations. South Africa's sovereignty and the dignity of its officers are inviolable. Mr. Seidman is required to depart the Republic within 72 hours. We urge the Israeli government to ensure its future diplomatic conduct demonstrates respect for the Republic and the established principles of international engagement. Inquiries can be directed to Mr. Crispin Peary, spokesman for the department. Now, here's the problem with this, and then I'll also talk about some merit to it. First off, using Israeli social media platforms to launch insulting attacks against President Ramaphosa. Well, it is inappropriate for a sitting ambassador to insult their host. Absolutely, 100%. That's why Ibrahim Rasool was sent packing. But I've looked at Mr. Seidman's X account. I see not a single attack on the president of South Africa. Not a single one. There's an interview in which he is interviewed and asked about South Africa's case against the ICJ, but there's no insults directed against the president of South Africa. I go back several months. There are examples of Israel providing assistance to South Africa, many things about Zionism, but nothing, not a single tweet that I can find that insults the president of South Africa. So perhaps they're speaking of other platforms, but certainly not on his account on X. As far as the deliberate failure to inform Durko of purported visits by senior officials, well, in fact, that is a serious charge, a serious allegation. However, having worked in multiple embassies, I'm not sure how that happens. In order to come to the country, you have to have a visa. If you come there on official business, then you have to have an official or a diplomatic visa to come there. So I can enter countries as a tourist, but every time I went to a country in official capacity as a diplomat, I had to get a diplomatic visa because you're there in a different capacity, and the government, your presence is announced to them. So unless these senior Israeli officials enter the country as tourists and then perform diplomatic activity, the government of South Africa has no basis to make an argument here. However, if they did enter in that way, then they do have a basis to complain. We don't know the true story here. But whatever the case is, this is an example of foolish diplomatic behavior on the part of Ronald Lamola and the ANC. The proper approach to this would have been to have gone to the government of Israel and told them that you're not happy with what's happening here, stop it. But the bottom line here, folks, and I guarantee it's twofold. Number one, it has to do with Brent Bozell coming and Israel and U.S. being close allies. And number two, this has everything to do with Dalian, the king, who got help from the Israeli government when he was neglected by the ANC. They've been embarrassed, and the Israeli government has provided assistance, and that can't be tolerated. So at the end of the day, that's probably the reason for this. Also, at the end of the day, South Africa is a sovereign state. They don't have to accept credentials. But this PNG, unless more facts come to light, appears to be over the top, wildly inappropriate, and a wild overreaction. The African National Congress is flailing. It's collapsing. It's eating itself from within, and it doesn't know which direction to turn. Well, this is not the direction to insult people who help your country. It's not a good move. Now, as far as the Israeli embassy, if you're sending people to South Africa under the guise of tourism and executing diplomacy, you're wrong. But somehow I doubt that's the case. Where's the truth? Somewhere in the middle? ANC? Israel? Who knows? But the bottom line is this is a shot across the bow diplomatically. And Israel is likely to respond in a less than ideal fashion, unless they're guilty. We'll see what happens. What say you, South Africa? Mzansi? Cheers.